Hello, welcome to the next lesson in this VB.NET Beginner 1 series. So as you can see, we're on the first program. So in the VB 101 we were creating an application in VB6. This time around we're doing it in Visual Studio 22. So if you open up Visual Studio 2022, there's different options to get started. We're going to create a new application project first. The other ones I'll run through in later lessons. In the create new project, there's different project templates. So because I've created these previously, they show up. And then there's different filters we can allow. So the first one is a language filter. Now I'm going to use Visual Basic first because this is a VB course. For platforms, I'm going to use Windows. As you can see, there's different operating systems you can build for. This great thing about the new .NET that was released from .NET Core and then continually improved for the last few years. We can write in one language and deploy to multiple different OSs. And then if we look at the project types, there's loads of different project types. Obviously, we're going to pick desktop today, but in future, if there's anything in particular you want us to run through, drop it in the forum and I'll add it to the list. So there's various different project templates. Again, if there's any in particular you want to see, give us a shout and I'll add them. But for now, we're going to use Windows Forms. So much like the calculator, we want to create a Windows Forms app. Click next, it'll ask for a name. So we're going to call this first program. We're going to stick it in a folder location, and then you can also place it in the same folder as your solution. We'll talk more about solutions in the future. You can add multiple projects to a solution. So framework versions, as I mentioned before, .NET Core came out a number of years ago. And this was Microsoft started trying to create a framework that could be used on Windows, Linux, Mac, iOS, Tizen for watches, various different things, and IoT you can even do it on. Now, as you can see, those versions are out of support. I've got them installed from previous attempts at writing in them. I should probably remove them now. 6 is still in long-term support. 7 is probably the one most people are on currently. And 8 has just come out recently. So if you were at .NET Conf or you were watching it online, you'll have seen the release of .NET 8. Urge you to catch up on anything on there. There's some great new features for that, especially Blazor, which I'll hopefully do a video about soon. So I'm going to pick 8 just because it's on my machine and might as well be on the latest version. It shouldn't really matter which version you pick, as long as it's one of the supported ones. But might as well go to the latest if you can. I'll create some tech help videos on downloading the different versions and the different versions of Visual Studio as well. If you've got an earlier version, this should all be very similar, if not the same. But do pop a note in the forum if there is any differences you want explaining. So as you can see, the IDE opens up. And there's a number of panes in this IDE for different things to do. So the toolbox we can show in a second when the form loads. Now, as you can see, there's an error that's showing up for Windows Forms. Now, I've had this issue a couple of times. I probably need to reinstall my Visual Studio, but I left it in just in case you got the same. There's different workloads or different kind of abilities you can install with the IDE, much how you saw that I could do iOS and macOS programming. So this has been playing up a little. So I'm just going to restart Visual Studio and then reopen the application. And hopefully the error should go from that. So as you can see, we've got the different applications that I've been working on, and just going to open up first program. So you can pin those if it's one that you're working on often and want to get back to it quickly. It's going to try loading the program again. You can see there's a number of things that are running in the background, and then we'll get back to explaining the different panes. So as you can see, there's a Solution Explorer. It has my solution of first program, and then my project of first program. There's a application events file. I'm just going to ignore that for now. And then there's the form. So by default, a form is created with this template. The different templates have different files that can be created by default. So we're going to see if this will load this time. While that's loading, I'll explain that you can see there's a Solution Explorer tab, there's a Git Changes, a Test Explorer, and an Endpoints Explorer. Now this is just because I've been using these in other applications. We'll get to tests in the future, but for now we're not going to be doing testing in these one level series. If you're not using Git, I do advise using Git. I've done a course on that on the site, so I can either put a link in the show notes or you can just search for Git. As you can see, there's different properties that are showing for this form, and now because it is a form and can allow controls, the toolbox is loaded with the different controls. So you should be used to these controls from VB6, and also if you're an Access developer, you've got the different controls in an Access form. As with VB6, there's the play button, so we're going to press play and run the application and see what shows. It'll take a few seconds to build, and we'll see the output in the build window, and then it's going to pop up on my other screen that isn't on camera. So I've dragged it over, and as you can see, much like the calculator, we have the minimize, maximize, and close, so we can do that. There's the main form options, so you can move it about, and you can see that there's a form name. So close that. You can see that form 1 is in the title, and you can see that that's the text in one of the properties. Now the properties can be arranged by either a grouping of Microsoft's choice or in alphabetical order, so whichever is easier for you to find, you can change that. There's a properties tab and an events button, so as you know, objects have properties and events attached to them. We'll get to event in a second, but as you can see, you can change the back color of this form to different system colors, or you can pick one from the web, or you can pick a custom color. So there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do here. So that form didn't really do much. We want to actually get into programming, so we'll drag on a button. As you can see, the button has a name, and it also has some text. So you can change the text that's on the button, and you can also change the colors and the font. And there's lots of different things available to you. If we run again, it'll take a few seconds to build. You'll see a bar along the bottom. You'll get the output from the build, and then we have a button on the form. Now clicking that button doesn't do anything because we haven't told it to do anything. So we want to actually instruct the application to do something when we click the button. So if you select the button and then double click on it, this creates a subroutine in the code behind. So as you can see on form1.vb, there's a designer file and some information about the form. And as you can see, it now contains this button one click. So by double clicking on the button, the IDE has automatically generated this code for us. Now we don't need to know everything about this subroutine, but if you've done a bit of VB84 or the VB6, hopefully it should be familiar to you. But basically private, it's only available to this form. The name of the button was button 1, and the event that we've asked for is the click event. We'll ignore the inputs for now, but we'll go into those in more detail in the future. And then it's just telling you that it's handling a click event. So what we want to do is, when the button's clicked, we want something to happen. Now in VB6, we had this message box command, which we said hello world. Now, this isn't the same code that is needed for .NET. It's different. So for this, we want the actual MsgBox class, and this is message as a full name. In older programming languages, we used to shorten the names, or the designers shorten the names just because programmers are lazy, and the less typing the better. So with this being it's a 25 plus year old language now, but we're expanding them. Now the MsgBox class has some functions available to it. One of them is show. So as you can see, we have IntelliSense, and it's telling us that show has an input of a string called text, and it displays a message box with the specified text. So if we put in hello world, and then you might see me putting a semicolon a lot. Now this is because I'm used to writing in .NET C#, and that terminates its lines with semicolons. So if you see us doing that, shout up and tell us to stop, because it will happen a lot. But luckily the IDE will tell us when I've got code written wrong. So we've pressed run again. The forms popped up as we'd expect, and the button is now clickable, and when we click it, it pops up saying hello world, and that's it. We are now finished for our first application. Give yourselves a pat on the back and congratulations, you've just built a hello world application.